In this video, I'm going to break down the audio system I designed in FMOD for an upcoming mobile game I worked on. In the game, you are a character that is trying to skate away from a hungry whale by dropping penguins in its path. The game itself is a simple, endless 2D runner that requires a very minimal amount of audio assets. In this project, I was only responsible for designing the audio system within FMOD and for creating the music tracks. The developer previously created assets that he still wanted to use, but we decided to use FMOD because we wanted to have a more interactive music system. So I will only go over how I designed this FMOD project and not how the sound effects were created. These first three events in the sound effects folder are all one-shots, meaning that they will only trigger once until they're called again by the game engine. Each of them has some variation through randomizing the pitch or both the volume and pitch. This last event represents the sound of the character's movement. It is a looping event with two different transition regions that you can move between by changing the jump switch parameter. When the gameplay initializes, this parameter is set to a value of 1, with the character starting on the ground, skating away from the whale. This first transition region has a range of 0 to 0.97. As long as the value stays at 1, the playhead will remain in this loop region. This is what it sounds like. This region that is looped is a nested event. If you double click on this region, you can view this nested event's timeline. This nested event holds an audio file that's looped within it. Nested events give us a higher level of functionality while making loops and transitions out of looped sections as smooth as possible. This will be further explored when we look at the music event. When the player decides to jump, the jump switch parameter will go to 0. The transition region will detect this and move the playhead to the destination marker specified. The player will hear this jumping sound, then silence will be looped until the character returns to the ground. Once the character touches the ground, the jump switch parameter will return to 1, and this transition region will move the playhead back to the start of the event. The music event is full of nested events that contain music tracks that we want looped. Using transition regions, we can move between different nested events, or we can move to a different part of the nested event on the timeline. This doesn't affect where the playhead is during playback, but rather allows us to manipulate different things around the track. I used automation to lower the high end and mid-range of a 3-band EQ when the player decides to pause the game. A parameter was also used to change the level of the piano and string section depending on how close the whale is to the player. The three nested events include menu music, gameplay music, and game over music. The game over music has looped silence at the end until the player either returns to the main menu or decides to restart gameplay. There is some small overlap between the sections with volume automation just to make sure the music transitions are smooth. They are fairly short since load times are practically non-existent in this mobile game, but having the overlap in volume automation prevents the music transitions from being too choppy. Using nested events is an absolute necessity here, because now the music can transition at any point during playback while overlapping cleanly with the following music track. I'll play the event and explain what parameters I'm changing in real time as the music plays. To move the menu music to gameplay, we'll change the music switch from 0 to 1. Now we'll alter the intensity value by dragging it to different values. When the game is paused, the pause value will change from 0 to 1. When the player decides to go back to gameplay, the pause value will go back to 0. The playhead will go to the destination marker, then once it hits the transition marker, it will go back to the initial gameplay destination marker. Once the player loses their run, the music switch will go from 1 to 2, triggering the game over music, then looping silence within the nested event until the player decides what to do next. That's about it for this demonstration. I hope you found it useful. Thanks for checking this out, and see you next time.